October 14, 1943. Cold air cuts across the English countryside as dawn struggles to break through a ceiling of low grey clouds. At RAF Thorpe Abbotts in eastern England, ground crews move like shadows beneath the massive wings of American bombers. The smell of aviation fuel and hot oil fills the air. Engines cough awake one by one. Staff Sergeant Jack Turner, a 23-year-old waist gunner from Ohio, stands beside the silver belly of a B-17 flying fortress named Lucky Bell. Frost gathers on the aluminum skin of the aircraft. Jack pulls his fleece-lined gloves tighter. Around him, hundreds of men prepare for what they all know will be a brutal mission. The target is deep inside Nazi Germany. Schweinfurt, ball-bearing factories, vital to the German war machine. The mission planners say the factories must burn, but everyone on this base knows something else. Schweinfurt is one of the most dangerous targets in Europe. No fighter escort will protect them once they cross deep into Germany. Jack climbs into the bomber through the narrow hatch, boots scraping against cold metal. Inside, the aircraft smells of oxygen tanks, grease, and machine gun oil. The crew is already settling into their stations. Lieutenant Robert Hayes, the pilot, studies his flight charts. 30 bombers in our group, Hayes mutters. Stay tight, stay disciplined. Co-pilot Frank Donnelly gives a dry smile. Easy to say before the flak starts. Jack crawls into the waist gun position. Twin .50 caliber. Machine guns wait beside him, their steel receivers icy against his gloves. Through the open gun window he can see the runway lights glowing faintly in the morning fog. Above the engines, the intercom crackles. Crew check. One by one, voices answer. Navigator ready. Bombardier ready. Tail gun ready. Jack presses his throat mic. Waist gun ready. Outside, the engines surge louder. For right R1A2 of Cyclone engines roar to life. Propellers spinning into blurred silver discs. The entire bomber vibrates like a living thing. Jack's stomach tightens. Every man aboard understands the odds. German fighters, heavy flak, long hours over enemy territory. Some bombers will not return. The control tower clears them for takeoff. One after another, the B-17s begin rolling down the runway. When Lucky Bell accelerates, the bomber shakes violently as it gathers speed. The runway disappears beneath them. Then suddenly, they are airborne, climbing through clouds over England. Soon the formation gathers high above the coast. Hundreds of bombers assemble into massive combat boxes stretching across the sky. A floating city of aluminum and guns. Jack watches through the waist window as sunlight finally breaks through the clouds. For a moment, it almost feels peaceful. Then the navigator's voice cuts into the intercom. We cross the German border in 20 minutes. Silence follows. The men check their weapons again, because every veteran knows what happens next. The Luftwaffe will come. The formation climbs steadily over the gray waters of the North Sea. Hundreds of B-17 flying fortresses stretch across the sky in precise combat boxes, their silver bodies glinting faintly in the pale morning sun. From a distance, they look almost peaceful. Up close, every man aboard knows better. Inside Lucky Bell, the temperature drops far below freezing. Frost forms along the metal ribs of the fuselage. Jack Turner rubs his gloved hands together and checks the feed belts on his .50 caliber machine guns. Each brass round shines faintly in the thin light. Hours of flying lie ahead. Below them, the sea disappears as the formation approaches the coast of occupied Europe. The navigator's voice breaks the silence. Approaching the Dutch coast, no one jokes anymore. The intercom remains quiet except for the steady drone of engines and the hiss of oxygen masks. Jack peers through the waist gun window. Far below, he sees dark fields, rivers, and scattered villages of the Netherlands, now under German control. Then it begins. Small black puffs appear in the distance. At first, they look harmless. Then the bombardier shouts over the intercom. Flak, 11 o'clock. Within seconds, the sky erupts. German 88mm anti-aircraft guns from the coast fire upward in violent bursts. Explosions tear open the sky around the formation. Black clouds of shrapnel bloom dangerously close to the bombers. The aircraft shudders. Jack grips the gun mount tighter. Another explosion flashes just below their wing. The bomber rattles violently. Fragments of steel whistle past the fuselage like angry hornets. Pilot Hayes keeps the formation steady. Hold position, he orders calmly. Don't break formation. Jack knows why. The bombers survive by staying close together. Their machine guns overlap, forming a deadly wall of fire against German fighters. Breaking formation means death. The flak intensifies as they cross deeper into enemy territory. Then the tail gunner's voice suddenly crackles through the intercom. Fighters, 6 o'clock low. Jack swings his guns toward the rear. Tiny black shapes climb rapidly from the clouds below. German Messerschmitt Bf-109s. More appear from the left, and then from above. The Luftwaffe is waiting. Sunlight flashes across their wings as they dive toward the bomber formation. The first fighter streaks past, guns blazing. Tracers rip through the sky. Jack squeezes the trigger. His twin machine guns roar, filling the freezing air with thunder. Empty shell casings spill across the floor of the bomber. Another fighter screams past the wing. The sky turns into chaos. Explosions, machine gun fire, burning aircraft falling toward the earth. Jack sees one B-17 in the distance suddenly explode into flames. Another bomber begins spinning downward, trailing smoke. The formation tightens. Every gun fires. Every man fights to stay alive. But the Luftwaffe keeps coming. Wave after wave of fighters slash through the bombers. The sky above Germany has become a battlefield. Engines roar. Machine guns hammer. Flak bursts bloom like black flowers across the freezing sky. Inside Lucky Bell, Jack Turner braces himself against the waist. Gun mount as the bomber shudders under. Another near explosion. The formation is still intact but barely. German fighters slice through the bombers again and again, attacking from every direction. A Messerschmitt Bf-109 screams past. Jack's window so close he can see the pilot's helmet. Jack fires. His twin .50 caliber machine guns thunder, sending streams of tracers toward the diving fighter. The German aircraft jerks upward and disappears into the clouds. But there's no time to celebrate. More fighters coming in. The tail gunner shouts. Jack glances across the sky. Another B-17 flies. Just off their right wing, its nose painted with a red pin-up girl and the name Iron Faith. The bomber rocks violently as cannon shells strike its fuselage. Pieces of aluminum peel away. Smoke pours from one engine. She's hit bad, Jack mutters. Inside Iron Faith, chaos erupts. Pilot Lieutenant Daniel Harper fights the controls as warning lights flash across the cockpit. Engine number 3 is burning. Hydraulic pressure drops. Feather that engine. Harper shouts. The co-pilot pulls the lever, but the propeller refuses to stop spinning. The aircraft begins drifting out of formation. And that's when the next attack comes. Two Focke-Wulf FW-190 fighters dive from the sun. Their heavy cannons flash. Shells tear through Iron Faith's wing. Fuel sprays into the air. Harper struggles to keep the bomber level. Hold her steady, he growls through clenched teeth. Behind them, Jack sees the damaged B-17 drifting dangerously close. Too close. The flak bursts again. Another explosion rocks the sky. At that exact moment, Lucky Bell jolts violently as a shockwave slams into the bomber. Pilot Hayes fights the controls. Watch that fort on the right, the co-pilot warns. But the damaged Iron Faith is already sliding toward them. Inside the freezing waste compartment, Jack suddenly realizes what's happening. The two bombers are on a collision course. Pilot, she's drifting into us. Too late. The massive wings of the B-17 flying fortresses slam together in the sky. Metal shrieks. Propellers shred aluminum. Jack is thrown against the fuselage as the aircraft lurch violently. For a terrifying second, it feels like both bombers will explode. But instead, something far stranger happens. The damaged wing of Iron Faith wedges itself into the upper fuselage of Lucky Bell. The two aircraft lock together, thousands of feet above Germany. Two bombers, two crews, now fused into one tangled machine in the sky. And somehow, they are still flying. But no one knows how long that miracle will last. The collision throws Jack Turner violently against the steel ribs of the fuselage. For a moment, the world becomes nothing but noise-screaming metal, roaring engines, and the howl of wind ripping through shattered aluminum. Then the bomber steadies. Barely. Jack lifts his head slowly. Something is terribly wrong. The right side of Lucky Bell is gone. Where there should be open sky and a clean wing, there is now twisted wreckage. And another airplane. The shattered wing of Iron Faith is jammed directly into the upper fuselage of Lucky Bell. Just behind the cockpit, two bombers each weighing over 30 tons are now locked together. In a grotesque metal embrace, Jack stares through the torn fuselage. Just a few feet away, he sees another gunner staring back at him from the wreckage of Iron Faith. Both men freeze in disbelief. Neither of them speaks, because neither man understands how they are still alive. Up front, pilot Robert Hayes fights the controls. The yoke shakes violently in his hands. Control surfaces responding. Barely, he mutters. Warning lights flash across the instrument panel. One engine is losing power. Another vibrates dangerously. Behind the cockpit, the crushed wing of Iron Faith presses deep into the bomber's spine. Hayes looks out the side window. He can actually see the other bomber's cockpit just ahead of them. Two aircraft, fused together in midair. Co-pilot Donnelly stares in shock. How the hell are we still flying? Hayes doesn't answer, because he doesn't know. Behind them, German fighters circle again. The bizarre shape of the tangled bombers has caught their attention. From a distance, it looks like a single giant aircraft. But up close, it's a wounded monster struggling to stay in the sky. Jack reloads his machine guns. His hands shake slightly. The tail gunner's voice crackles over the intercom. More fighters forming up. Outside, 3 FW-190s approach cautiously. The German pilots hesitate. Even they have never seen anything like this. 2 American bombers stuck together in the sky. But hesitation lasts only seconds. The fighters attack. Cannons flash. Tracers tear past the tangled aircraft. Jack fires back instantly. His .50 caliber guns thunder again, sending bright streams of fire across the sky. One fighter veers away. Another continues straight toward them. And then something unexpected happens. The strange balance of the 2 bombers actually stabilizes the damaged wings. Together, the aircraft hold level flight. Separate, they would already be falling. But locked together, they are somehow still airborne. Inside Iron Faith, Lieutenant Daniel Harper stares through his shattered cockpit window. Just ahead, he sees the nose of Lucky Bell pulling both aircraft through the sky. 2 crews, 2 machines, now sharing the same fate. Harper grips the control yoke and whispers quietly, "Keep flying, just keep flying, because if either bomber loses control, both aircraft will plunge together from 20,000 feet. 20,000 feet above Germany, the impossible aircraft struggles forward. The B-17 flying fortresses, fused together by twisted metal and shattered wings, drift across the cold sky like a wounded giant. Inside Lucky Bell, Jack Turner wipes frost from the edge of his oxygen mask and peers through the torn fuselage. The gunner from Iron Faith is still there just a few feet away, a young man with wide, stunned eyes. Neither of them plan to share the same airplane today. Jack taps the metal frame between them. "You alive?" The other gunner nods slowly. "Barely." The wind screams between the broken aircraft, carrying freezing air through both bombers. Above the roar of engines, Jack can hear something worse. A deep metallic grinding. The sound of 2 massive machines slowly tearing themselves apart. Up in the cockpit of Lucky Bell, Lieutenant Robert Hayes studies the instruments. Altitude, 19,800 feet. Airspeed, dropping. Fuel, draining faster than expected. The added drag from the second bomber is enormous. "She's heavy," co-pilot Donnelly mutters. Hayes glances sideways through the cracked window. He can see the nose of Iron Faith only yards away. Pilot Daniel Harper sits in his own cockpit, fighting his controls. The 2 men lock eyes across the narrow gap between aircraft. Neither pilot says a word, but both understand the same thing. If either one loses control, both bombers will fall. The intercom suddenly crackles. Tail gunner, fighters returning. Jack swings his machine guns toward the rear. The Luftwaffe has regrouped. For dark shapes approach from high above. Focke-Wulf FW-190s again. But this time, the German pilots slow down. They circle cautiously. Even experienced fighter pilots have never seen something like this. 2 bombers flying as one. Smoke trails stream from damaged engines. Metal panels flap wildly in the freezing wind. Yet somehow, the aircraft continues forward. Inside one of the German fighters, the pilot studies the strange machine through his gun sight. He hesitates. It feels almost wrong to shoot something already so broken. But orders are orders. His cannons flash. Tracer rounds streak toward the bombers. Jack fires instantly. His twin .50 caliber guns roar again. The sky fills with crossing lines of fire. One German fighter breaks away. Another presses closer. Tracers slam into the tail section of Iron Faith. Jack sees sparks fly. The other gunner returns fire through the shattered fuselage. 2 men from different aircraft now fighting side by side. The fighters finally pull away again. Low on ammunition, low on patience, but they will return. Jack exhales slowly. For the moment, the sky grows quiet again, but a new danger is already appearing. The massive bomber formation ahead is moving on toward Schweinfurt, and the strange, crippled aircraft behind them is falling farther and farther back. Soon, they will be completely alone in the skies over Nazi Germany. 2 broken bombers, 1 impossible machine. The bomber formation disappears slowly into the distance. Hundreds of B-17 flying fortresses continue toward Schweinfurt, their silver wings glinting faintly against the cold European sky. But far behind them, something strange still struggles to remain airborne. 2 bombers, locked together like wreckage that refuses to fall. Inside Lucky Bell, Jack Turner feels the aircraft shudder beneath his boots. The engines roar unevenly now. One of them coughs, sputters, then catches again. The entire machine trembles. The extra weight of the second bomber is slowly draining their power. Jack looks through the torn fuselage again. The gunner from Iron Faith wipes blood from his forehead. "What's your name?" Jack shouts over the wind. Tommy, the man answers. Jack, they nod to each other. To strangers, now sharing the same chance of survival. Up front, Lieutenant Robert Hayes keeps both hands locked on the control yoke. Sweat runs down his neck despite the freezing air. Altitude dropping, the navigator warns. Hayes glances at the instruments. 18,500 feet. They are slowly sinking. Across the twisted metal gap, pilot Daniel Harper in iron faith studies his own controls. Most of them are dead. Hydraulics gone. 2 engines destroyed. His bomber alone could never stay in the air, but somehow the nose and engines of Lucky Bell are pulling them both forward. The 2 aircraft have become a strange balance of weight and lift. Break that balance, and everything ends. The radio operator suddenly leans toward the cockpit. German fighters regrouping behind us. Hayes exhales slowly. They're not going to let us leave Germany. Jack hears it too. A distant buzzing sound growing louder. He turns his guns toward the rear sky. Dark dots appear again on the horizon. 3 fighters. No, 4. The Luftwaffe is coming back for the kill. This time they approach carefully, circling the crippled bomber pair like wolves studying wounded prey. Inside one Bf-109, the German pilot studies the bizarre aircraft shape. 2 American bombers stuck together, 1 long fuselage, 2 tails, smoke pouring from multiple engines. He lines up his gun sight, but before he fires, something unexpected happens. The strange aircraft begins descending faster. Hayes pushes the throttles forward. Engines overheating, Donnelly warns. Doesn't matter, Hayes replies. We need speed. The combined bomber finally begins slipping downward through the clouds. Altitude falling rapidly now. 17,000 feet. The German fighters hesitate again. Flak batteries below begin firing upward toward the descending aircraft. Black explosions fill the sky once more. Jack grips his guns tightly. If the fighters attack now, the tangled bomber has almost no chance. But the German pilots hold back for just a moment longer, watching, studying, waiting for the exact moment when gravity finally wins. And when that moment comes, 2 bombers will fall together from the sky over Hitler's Germany. The crippled aircraft sinks through the clouds like a dying giant. The B-17 flying fortresses, tangled together by twisted metal, descend slowly over the German countryside. Inside Lucky Bell, the air has grown even colder. Frost coats the metal floor beneath Jack Turner's boots. The oxygen mask presses hard against his face as he watches the sky behind them. For the first time since the collision, no fighters are attacking. The German aircraft remain at a distance now, circling cautiously. Even they seem unsure what they are seeing. Jack adjusts the ammunition belt feeding into his .50 caliber machine gun. Only a few belts remain. He glances through the torn fuselage toward the other bomber. Tommy, the gunner from Iron Faith, sits against the shattered frame, breathing heavily. You think we make it? Tommy shouts across the gap. Jack hesitates. Then he shrugs. Still flying. Sometimes that's the only answer a soldier can give. Up in the cockpit, Lieutenant Robert Hayes studies the instruments again. Altitude, 15,800 feet. Airspeed, barely holding. Fuel consumption is rising fast as the engines struggle to carry the impossible weight. Across the broken metal bridge between the bombers, pilot Daniel Harper stares at the ground far below. German farmland stretches beneath them, dark forests, narrow rivers, scattered villages, enemy territory in every direction. Harper reaches for the radio switch. Nothing but static answers. Their radios are dead. The co-pilot in Lucky Bell breaks the silence. Even if we stay in the air, where do we go? No one answers immediately. England is hundreds of miles away. France is crawling with German forces. The nearest friendly airfield might as well be on the moon. Hayes exhales slowly. We head west. It's the only option. Below them, a sudden flash erupts from the ground. Then another, and another. German 88mm. Flak guns have spotted the strange aircraft descending through the clouds. Black explosions bloom around them once again. The sky fills with violent bursts of smoke and steel. Jack grips the gun mount as the aircraft shakes violently. Shrapnel slices through the torn fuselage. Metal screams as fragments punch through the bomber's skin. Another blast rocks the aircraft. One of the engines coughs dangerously. Engine to losing power. Donnelly shouts. The combined bomber lurches sharply. For a terrifying second, the tangled aircraft begins to roll sideways. Both pilots fight their controls desperately. Harper pulls hard on his damaged yoke. Hayes counters with opposite pressure. Slowly, painfully, the strange machine steadies again. But the sky ahead has grown darker. Not with clouds, with more aircraft. Jack squints through the haze. Large shapes approaching from the west. 4 engines each. Heavy wings. For a moment his heart jumps. Bombers. Then he realizes something. Those aren't American aircraft. They're German Junkers Ru-88 night fighters, climbing toward the crippled bombers. The strange aircraft continues its slow descent over Germany. Two shattered B-17 flying fortresses locked together like broken bones that refuse to separate. Smoke trails behind them as the engines struggle to keep turning. Inside Lucky Bell, Jack Turner braces against the vibrating gun mount. His ammunition belts are nearly empty now. Every bullet must count. Outside the torn fuselage, the sky darkens with approaching aircraft. Four large shapes climb toward them through the haze. Junkers Ru-88 heavy fighters. Twin engines, heavy cannons, deadly against bombers. Up in the cockpit, Lieutenant Robert Hayes sees them immediately. "Contacts ahead," he says quietly. Co-pilot Donnelly leans forward, squinting through the cracked windshield. "Those aren't ours." No one needs further explanation. The Ru-88 spread out, forming a wide attack pattern. Unlike the earlier fighters, these pilots show no hesitation. The crippled American aircraft is too slow to escape, too damaged to fight properly. To them, this is simply an execution. Inside Iron Faith, Lieutenant Daniel Harper grips his control yoke tightly. Most of his instruments are dead, hydraulics gone, two engines silent, but he can still feel the aircraft through the controls. He glances across the shattered gap toward Hayes in the other cockpit. The two pilots exchange another silent look. They both know the truth now. If the fighters attack, this time, they won't survive. The first Ru-88 begins its approach. Its nose dips slightly as it lines up the massive target. Jack swings his machine guns toward the incoming aircraft. His heart pounds against the tight straps of his harness. The German fighter grows larger, closer, closer. At 800 yards, its cannons flash. Bright streaks of tracer fire slash toward the tangled bombers. Jack fires back instantly. His .50 caliber guns roar one more time. Empty shell casings clattering across the frozen metal floor. The sky fills with crossing streams of gunfire. The Ru-88 veers sharply, avoiding the worst of the defensive fire. But another fighter slides into position behind it. Then something unexpected happens. The lead German pilot suddenly pulls away. Hard. His aircraft climbs sharply instead of attacking. The other Ru-88s hesitate. Inside the cockpit of the lead fighter, the German pilot studies the crippled aircraft through his windshield. Two bombers, dozens of men, trapped together, barely flying. It's not really a battle anymore. It's a disaster already unfolding. For several long seconds, the fighters circle the broken machine without firing. Jack stares in disbelief. Why aren't they shooting? No one answers, because no one understands. Then slowly, one by one, the German fighters turn away. Their engines fade into the distance, leaving the crippled bomber alone in the silent sky. But the danger isn't over, because ahead, far on the horizon, the coast of Europe is still hundreds of miles away, and the strange aircraft is still losing altitude. The sky grows strangely quiet. The German Ru-88 fighters disappear into the clouds, their engines fading into the distance. For the first time since crossing into Nazi Germany, no one is shooting. No flak, no fighters, only the grinding sound of two broken B-17 flying fortresses fighting gravity. Inside Lucky Bell, Jack Turner lowers his machine guns slowly. His ammunition belts hang empty. The cold wind still tears through the shattered fuselage where another bomber is embedded like wreckage. Across the twisted metal gap, Tommy from Iron Faith gives him a tired grin. "Guess they decided we're already dead." Jack exhales slowly. "Maybe." Up front, Lieutenant Robert Hayes stares through the cracked windshield. The horizon is faint, blurred by high clouds and engine smoke. But somewhere out there, beyond the forests and rivers of Germany, lies the North Sea. And beyond that, England. The navigator checks his charts again. "If we keep this heading, we might reach the coast." "Might," Donnelly repeats. The engines groan as Hayes carefully adjusts the throttles. Two engines remain reliable. One is overheating. Another shakes violently. Altitude, 12,000 feet. Still falling. Across the twisted wreckage, pilot Daniel Harper studies the same sky. His bomber no longer responds to most controls. But the strange balance between the two aircraft still holds. Lucky Bell pulls. Iron Faith drags behind. Together they move like a wounded animal struggling across the sky. Minutes pass. Long, silent minutes. Then suddenly, a faint line appears far ahead on the horizon. A dark, endless stretch of water. The North Sea? Jack leans toward the gun window and squints. Then he sees something else. Small dark shapes moving across the distant sky. At first his stomach tightens. More fighters. But as the aircraft draw closer, he recognizes the wide wings. The familiar shape. P-47 Thunderbolt fighters. American. Their engines roar as they sweep past the crippled bomber pair. One pilot slows, flying alongside the tangled aircraft. The fighter pilot stares in disbelief through his canopy. Two bombers, stuck together, still flying. Inside the B-17, the radio operator finally hears something through the static. A calm voice breaks through. An identified bomber. This is U.S. fighter escort. Do you require assistance? The crew looks at each other. Hayes finally answers into the damaged radio. You wouldn't believe it, but yes. The P-47 pilot circles once more around the bizarre aircraft. Even in war, even after years of combat, he has never seen anything like this. Two shattered bombers. Two crews, still alive, still flying, locked together above Hitler's Germany. And somehow, against every law of gravity and war, on their way home,